By the end of today's episode, you'll understand why aiming for what I call a level 5 performance might actually hurt your audition, and what level to aim for instead to consistently book roles. This is a really common issue. Even if you don't know what level 5 means, chances are high that you might be doing it, regardless of how experienced you are as an actor. Welcome to the Actor's Career Compass, where we help aspiring screen actors find high-quality auditions, sign with great agents, and book major roles in legit productions. I'm your host, Martin Benson, and today I'll be covering what the 5 levels of performance are and how to spot where your performances are landing, why trying to play a character that's too different from who you are can oftentimes backfire, and how to aim for what I call level 4 performances, where you're gonna get noticed, but without going a bit over the top. So let's talk a bit about the 5 levels of acting first, okay? So level 1, that's a performance that has certain basic problems with it, right? You're indicating, it's looking fake, there's overacting. Basically, there's too much performances, right? Like, you're doing big gestures and forcing the emotion. Oftentimes, this can happen with actors who are new and they don't necessarily know much about natural acting or film/like screen acting. Many times they think that they need to be bigger with the performance, but what happens is, especially on camera where the microphone is right there and the camera's right there, unlike a theater where you need to perform big so that the audience can see it, on camera, that kind of big performance can make your performance look more fake, right? So that's a level 1. Now, level 2 performances are much more natural, okay? So when you watch it, it does feel like a regular conversation. So for example, rather than me saying, hello, how are you today, right? Which is too big, I might be like, hello, how are you today, right? And say it in a much more natural way. The problem though with level 2 is while your performance is much more subtle and more realistic, you didn't make clear choices for every moment in the scene. And so when people watch your performance, something might feel a little bit off. And the person who's watching it might start to notice that their mind is wandering and they're not paying full attention to the scene because they don't really know what's going on sort of on an unconscious level. Something just kind of seems off, and so they're just like watching it, and then before you know it, they're like, wait, what happened? What did I see? Right? That's a level 2 performance. Now, a level 3 performance is supernatural and perfectly clear choices. So when you watch it, everything is completely on point, right? So for instance, again, if your line is, hello, how are you today, right? Again, level 1, it's like, hello, how are you today? You know, like way too big, ridiculous, fake. Level 2 is, hello, how are you today, right? But you don't necessarily know why you're saying that or who you're talking to, right? So if you decide, okay, I'm talking to my friend who I know really well and I'm just greeting them. Okay, again, my lines are, hello, how are you today? Well, why might I be saying hello instead of, hey, how are you today? Because hello is a little bit formal, right? Like when you're talking, most people don't say hello to a friend. So I have to get clear on why am I saying hello? Well, maybe I'm messing with my friend. And so I'm just kind of trying to throw them through a loop or something and just kind of be like, hey, what's going on, man? So I might be like, hello, how are you today? Right? And so that's like interesting, a little bit different, right? Or maybe my character just says hello all the time and that's just natural for them. So it's like, hello, how are you today? Right? But if you don't speak that way in real life, that can feel a little bit weird, and so you might be confused saying it, and it still might look a little bit unnatural. So again, maybe you try it a different way. Maybe I am trying to mess with them, and I'm like, hello, how are you today? Or, hello, how are you today? Like I'm trying to get their attention. Oh, that can make sense. Hello, how are you today? Right? okay, that actually works and feels more natural. Obviously, the choices that you make have to make sense given the scene. But if it does, if I'm like, oh, maybe my friend is not paying attention to me and I'm trying to get their attention by saying this, then they turn to me and we engage in the conversation. Okay, fine, that makes sense. Hello, how are you today? It works, right? So that's level 3. It's kind of where you've made clear choices and everything makes complete sense. This is a technically perfect performance. However, it's not interesting or engaging emotionally to watch. So when people see it, they're just kind of like, okay, I believe it, but I'm not like deeply connected to the scene, right? Well, some performances require that level of emotion, right? Like if you're playing in a scene a waiter who's taking an order at a table and you just have like 2 lines, well, you're not going to come in and be like, hey, can I take your orders? You know, like really sad and emotional or something. It's just going to be weird and distracting in the project. Just going to be like, hey, can I take your orders? Right? That's it. It's very natural and straightforward. So that type of performance does require level 3 and not to go up to a level 4, right? It's where you make clear choices throughout the scene and the performance is real. It's just that the performance isn't something that makes the viewer feel like super engaged and interesting, like they can't stop watching. It might be a tiny bit boring to watch. It's just straightforward, right? And that's where we go to level 4, which is a much more emotional and captivating scene, right? So you've raised the stakes by making stronger choices. The performance is really amazing. It's super interesting to watch. It gives the casting director, as they say in the industry, goosebumps because it feels so real. Right? So again, like, hello, how are you today is kind of boring line. It might be difficult to make that more interesting. So maybe to raise the stakes, you're like, okay, maybe I'm trying to get my friend's attention, but it's so important that I get their attention and they're trying to do something. And I really, if I don't get their attention, to me as a character, things are just really going downhill fast and I need them to pay attention to me right now because I'm going through something really difficult. And so I'm like, hello, how are you today? Right? Like, again, I don't know whether that makes sense, but the idea is like, you've kind of raised the stakes up to such a level that even simple, straightforward lines are more emotional and real and they capture the attention of the person watching, like, oh, what is going on? Why is this person talking like this, right? So that's a level 4 performance. And you can apply that anytime that it makes sense. That makes your scene much more interesting and emotional for someone to watch. Now, this all brings us to level 5, which is why we're here today. Okay, a level 5 performance is what I call a totally transformed character. It's essentially where you do all of the stuff from level 4, but you're playing someone with a totally different personality than you naturally have, right? So they might have a different voice, like an accent, or be speaking in a different language. They might have different mannerisms or physicality. This can be really, really powerful if it's done well. But the problem is that if it's not done well, and if you don't put the time in to do it perfectly, it can lead to fake acting, which is a level 1 problem where it looks like just something is off. Okay, so if you don't pull it off perfectly, it just drops your whole performance down and we lose all of the real levels and layers and everything that came before it. And that's why level 5 is a trap for most actors. Aiming for a full-on transformation into a completely different character who speaks and acts in a different way, it does sound exciting. It's like, this is why you might have gotten into acting. But here's the problem. It's way too easy to kind of go into that performer mode where you're becoming theatrical and overdoing everything. You start to focus on, how do I look to the audience? Am I doing this in a realistic way? And so you start focusing on how you look on camera rather than what you want in the scene. You start trying to indicate the kind of character that you're playing, which is a level 1 problem, indication, right? Strong auditions demand honesty, not wildly different characters than who you are as a person. So unless you're working with months of prep, like doing method acting or something to really get into that character, trying to play someone who's totally different from yourself oftentimes leads to indication, inconsistency in your performance, and just like something that looks quite fake or just something about it seems off. In some cases, like if you're trying to play someone who is like overly caring, right? Then what it can actually do is almost look like patronizing to the other character. I've seen this numerous times where someone is playing a character who's supposed to be like, like so caring, but they do it in such a way where their indication makes it look like they're just kind of like talking down to the other person. An example might be like, let's say if the line is, "I really want to help you today. What can I do for you?" Right? Like a real version might be like, "Listen, I really want to help you today. What can I do for you?" Right? Versus if you're trying to play this character and put yourself into this place where you're completely caring and you're like, "I really want to help you today. What can I do for you?" That, like, to the other character, if you're sitting in their shoes, makes you look like a terrible person, like you're being like completely sarcastic. "I really want to help you." You know what I mean? And so then you come off the opposite of how you're trying to look, and that's because you're trying to do a level 5 performance where you completely live in this other type of character, where it would have been better for you to just aim for a level 4, which is essentially where you're playing yourself, right? Remember, for auditions especially, I mean, sure, if you want, you could try to do level 5 performances once you book the role and you have plenty of rehearsal time and everything. But most of the time with auditions, you only have like a day or two to get it done. So it's better to just play yourself and do it in a way that you would say it. As like, if I was doing it, like if I, Martin Benson, were put into this situation and I had to say this stuff and do this type of scene, how might I speak? Okay. Level 4 is where the magic happens, right? Strong bookable performances are going to be rooted in you, like your brand and the way that you speak. How would you be in the situation of the scene? They're also elevated with high stakes. So what choices can you make that will make your need to achieve your goal in the scene even stronger? Like, do I need to achieve this goal like right now? Like if I don't achieve this right now, everything is falling apart, right? That's a way to kind of raise the stakes and make it much more of an emotional performance. They also need clarity, specificity, and again, emotion, right? So you want to be you without trying to play someone else, but you want to be super specific with everything that's happening in the scene, okay? So instead of thinking, what kind of character do I need to be for this audition and how can I change myself to play this other role? Ask yourself, if I myself were in this situation, how might I be? How might I react, right? That's your brand and it's what makes your performance uniquely you. Remember, level 5, it might look impressive, but it also often leads to problems. Level 4 is where casting directors say, "Oh, wow, this is really, really interesting. It feels so real, like they brought this scene to life. Maybe I'll give them a call back and I'll give them some specific direction and see if they could do it a different way." Yeah, and then in the callback, you can kind of take that direction and do it, okay? So keep it real, raise the stakes, and trust that your brand is good enough. Thanks for listening today. Now, if you want to dive deeper specifically on submitting strong self-tapes, I highly recommend checking out an episode that I did called How Mastering the First 5 Seconds of Your Self-Tape Can Transform Your Acting Success. It's episode number 129. I dive deep on how to make sure that those first few seconds of your tapes are on point so that they don't turn it off before they ever get to the good part. Because it is common for casting directors to only watch 5 or 10 seconds. And if anything is off about that, because it can be difficult to kind of get into the scene, so if anything is off about that, they'll never see the good part of your audition. So again, that's episode number 129, How Mastering the First 5 Seconds of Your Self-Tape Can Transform Your Acting Success. And it's on the Actor's Career Compass. Lastly, if you're interested in working with me one-on-one for both technique and career strategy, you can learn more about how that works on my website, martinbenson.com. That's MartinBenTsen. I'd love to speak with you, and we'll see if you'd be a good fit for the coaching program. Thanks so much, and I'll see you soon.